Sometimes it feels like you're just caught in a storm,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And you're looking for something solid to grab onto. Life keeps throwing these punches, and you're left wondering, well, where's that strength supposed to come
Yeah,
from?
that feeling of needing resilience, that inner reserve.
Exactly. And that's really what the material you showed with us gets into for this deep dive.
Right. It explores that human search for strength.
Yeah, that fundamental quest, but specifically looking at it through Jesus's teachings and example.
That's right. We looked at sources that unpack, well, they call them 6 keys or principles, things Jesus taught, but also, importantly, things he lived out.
And these aren't just like abstract ideas floating around.
No, not at all. They're presented as really practical ways to build up that deep, kind of unwavering inner strength.
Okay, great. So, our mission today really is to pull out the key insights from these teachings, the bits that you, our listener, can actually use.
Actionable nuggets, you could say.
Exactly. We want to understand how this resilience thing works according to these principles and how you might bring them into your own life, whatever challenges you're facing.
Sort of a practical guide to inner fortitude without getting totally bogged down in theology.
Precisely. So, where do we start? What's the first key?
Okay, so the first one is all about trust. Specifically, trust in God at all times.
Okay.
The sources really emphasize that um, true strength isn't about relying on ourselves because we're limited, right?
Right.
It's about this deep, persistent reliance on something bigger, especially when things get really challenging.
And the material jumps right into an example, doesn't it? Jesus in the wilderness.
Yeah, that's a powerful one. After fasting for 40 days, I mean, can you imagine the physical state he was in?
Utterly depleted,
Oh,
extremely vulnerable.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's when the temptation comes, the suggestion to turn stones into bread.
Yeah.
Address that immediate basic need.
But his response is key.
It is. He says, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God.
So even in that moment of extreme physical need,
Uh-huh. He prioritizes something deeper, spiritual sustenance over the physical. It suggests resilience isn't about getting rid of our needs or weaknesses, but about anchoring ourselves to something more fundamental, a truth that goes beyond our immediate feelings or situation.
that makes sense. So in our own moments of feeling totally wiped out, maybe at our breaking point,
Yeah.
that's when consciously choosing to trust in something beyond what we can see or control, like a core belief maybe, or a sense of purpose that can be the anchor.
Precisely. And the sources also mention how Jesus consistently chose to align himself with God's will, even when it was difficult.
Right, like in John 6.38, it wasn't just about asking God for things.
Exactly. It was also about aligning with God's purpose, even if it meant sacrifice.
And then there's that second temptation in the wilderness, the dare to jump from the temple.
Right. Test God, basically. See if the angels will catch you.
But again, Jesus uses scripture. Do not put the Lord your God to the test.
And this tells us something important about trust, doesn't it?
Yeah, what's the takeaway there?
That genuine trust doesn't demand, like, constant signs or spectacular proofs. It operates on a deeper conviction. It's believing that a guiding hand is at work, even if you don't see it immediately, without trying to force things yourself.
Okay. So, no need for fireworks, just a quiet confidence that things are unfolding.
In the right time, yeah. And then the sources bring in Isaiah 40.31.
Ah, those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength.
Exactly. Think about how often you might try to just power through using your own willpower.
All the time, and it runs out.
Right. This verse suggests another source, a renewal that comes not from our own limited reserves, but from placing hope somewhere else, like tapping into an inexhaustible source.
And the David and Goliath story comes up here too, right? As an illustration.
Yes. David wasn't some mighty warrior.
Yeah.
His confidence wasn't in his own strength or his slingshot.
It was in God.
Totally. He says something like, you come at me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. His trust was completely elsewhere.
So, applying that, think about the giants you might face. Financial stress, health issues, relationship problems.
Where are you placing your trust when you face those huge obstacles? That's the question it raises.
The sources also quote Proverbs 3.5-6, don't they?
Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a call for, like, total trust, not just for the big crises, but for everyday life.
Even when things make absolutely no sense to us.
Especially then, like
Yeah.
the story of Lazarus. Jesus waits, Lazarus dies. Everyone's questioning him.
Right. Why didn't you come sooner?
But Jesus says it's for God's glory. It shows that what looks like delay or even failure to us might be part of a bigger picture we just can't see yet.
So, wrapping up this first key, trust isn't a one-off thing.
No, it's an ongoing practice, a daily choice, really. And Philippians 4 tells us that when we do this, when we burn our worries with trust and thanks,
We find peace.
a peace that goes beyond our circumstances, that passes all understanding.
Okay, that's a powerful start. What's the second key to resilience?
The second key is prayer, constant prayer.
Okay. And again, Jesus didn't just talk about this.
No, prayer was absolutely fundamental to his life, a constant source of his strength. The sources really highlight his prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Right before his crucifixion, a moment of incredible anguish.
Intense emotional distress. He even says, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death."
Just raw vulnerability there.
Completely. And what does he do? He prays. The sources stress that prayer is that direct line, that connection, especially when we feel utterly depleted ourselves.
And it wasn't just a quick prayer.
No, he prays repeatedly, 3 times. It shows persistence, this deep engagement during intense suffering. And that line, "Yet not as I will, but as you will."
That's surrender.
Yes, it shows how prayer helps align our will with a greater purpose, even when it's incredibly hard.
Then the disciples, they kept falling asleep.
Right? A stark contrast. The sources suggest that without that prayer connection, they were weak, while Jesus came out of it strengthened for what was ahead.
Prayer really fortified him.
It seems so. Another example is when he spent all night praying before choosing the 12 disciples.
So prayer not just for distress, but for guidance too. Big decisions.
Exactly. Not just relying on his own judgment, but seeking that higher wisdom.
Then there's that verse, pray without ceasing, 1 Thessalonians 5:1 and other.
Yeah, and the sources clarify that's not necessarily about, like, formal prayer 24/7.
More of an attitude.
Right, an ongoing sense of conversation, of connection throughout your day, whatever you're doing.
And Jesus often withdrew to pray, didn't he? To solitary places.
He did, even with the demanding ministry, people needing him constantly. He made time for that personal renewal, to listen.
That's a challenge for us, isn't it, in our busy lives? To find those quiet moments.
It really is. But the example suggests it's vital. We also see the disciples asking him, "Teach us to pray."
Which led to the Lord's Prayer, a model, really.
Yeah, covering reverence, seeking God's purpose, daily needs, forgiveness, protection. It's all in there.
And the sources mention a parable about persistence.
Ah, the persistent widow and the unjust judge. Yes,
What's the point there?
it's about not giving up. Keep praying, keep asking, not because God is reluctant like the judge, but because persistence demonstrates trust that you will be heard, even if the timing isn't what you expect.
So prayer is fundamentally relational.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic relationship, a conversation that builds strength, resilience, and keeps you grounded.
Okay. Trust and prayer. What's the third key?
The third one is serving others.
Serving. How does that build strength? This sounds counterintuitive almost.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the sources argue that true strength isn't found in being served, but paradoxically, in serving others.
And the big example is Jesus washing the disciples' feet.
The ultimate example. I mean, in that culture, that was the job of the lowest servant. For the master, the Lord, to do that. It was shocking.
Peter couldn't handle it at first.
No. He protested. But Jesus explained, "If I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example."
So service isn't weakness.
Far from it. Jesus shows it's an expression of inner strength, of confidence in who you are. True leadership, true greatness, lies in giving service, not demanding it.
And the sources link this to, like, empathy and compassion.
Yes. When you focus outwards on others' needs, it naturally pulls your attention away from your own problems, your own struggles. It builds connection.
Mark 10.45 is mentioned too, right?
For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. Yeah, it sums up his whole mission, really, service and sacrifice.
And this isn't just about huge acts.
No, the sources emphasize that even small acts of service, especially when you're feeling weak yourself, can actually renew your own strength. Like that verse in Galatians, let us not become weary in doing good.
Keep going, even when it's tough.
Right. And look at Jesus feeding the 5,000. Limited resources, huge need. He chose to serve, trusting in a provision beyond what was visible.
Service also cultivates humility, apparently.
It does. By putting others' needs first, it naturally shifts your perspective away from yourself. Philippians 2 talks about this.
And serving without expecting anything back.
That's huge. Luke 6.35. That's pure resilience, isn't it? Acting generously without needing applause or reward, it frees you from needing external validation.
The sources even suggest serving prepares us for our own hard times.
Yeah, by fostering that spirit of surrender and interconnection. Matthew 25 implies that serving those in need is like serving Christ himself.
And Matthew 20 again. Whoever wants to become great must be your servant.
It flips the whole idea of greatness on its head.
And there's a long-term perspective, too.
Hebrews 6.deo. It suggests these acts of love and service have lasting meaning. They aren't forgotten.
So the core idea, serving, shifts us from self-protection to selflessness.
Exactly. And that shift provides purpose and strength from the inside out.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to the fourth key.
Number 4 is having faith, especially in difficult times.
Faith. Okay, we touched on trust. How is this different?
It's closely related, but maybe faith here is more about that active belief and assurance when things are actively falling apart. Again, Jesus is the prime example.
Like calming the storm.
Yes, Matthew 8. The disciples, experienced sailors, are freaking out. Jesus is asleep.
And they wake him up, terrified.
Lord, save us, we're going to drown. And his response is pointed. Why are you so afraid, you of little faith?
So faith is the anchor in the chaos.
It keeps you grounded, trusting in a larger order, even when everything seems out of control. For Jesus, it wasn't passive belief, it was active trust.
And the woman with the issue of blood.
Mark 5, a beautiful example. Years of suffering, no hope left. But she believed just touching his clothes would heal her.
And it did.
Instantly. And Jesus says, daughter, your faith has healed you. It shows how faith can tap into this power, even when things seem impossible.
Then there's the mustard seed analogy.
Matthew 17.20. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, nothing will be impossible. The point isn't the amount of faith.
But where it's placed.
Exactly. Even a little faith directed towards the right source can achieve amazing things.
Faith also brings peace.
Yes, John 14.27. Jesus offers a peace the world can't give, a peace rooted in trust, regardless of circumstances.
What about the Canaanite woman? Her daughter was ill.
Matthew 15, another example of persistent faith. She wouldn't take no for an answer, kept believing even when Jesus seemed dismissive at first.
And he acknowledged her great faith.
Her persistence paid off.
Yeah.
Then Hebrews 11.1 defines faith.
Confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see.
Right. Faith gives certainty even when the evidence isn't visible yet.
And Lazarus again. When Jesus asked Martha, do you believe?
John 11. Faith is directly linked to hope, even facing death, believing in Jesus' power over everything.
So faith is really the foundation of resilience.
It equips you to face challenges not with fear, but with trust and that inner peace.
Okay. Key number 5?
This one can be tough. Wholehearted forgiveness.
Oof. Yeah, that's not always easy.
Definitely not. But the sources present it as a sign of profound spiritual strength, not weakness.
And the ultimate example has to be Jesus on the cross.
Luke 23.34. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing, while suffering unimaginably. It's radical.
It shows forgiveness isn't just overlooking something minor.
No. It's a powerful act, reflecting a deep grace. It takes strength to forgive like that, trusting in a higher justice instead of seeking revenge yourself.
Matthew 6 links our forgiving others to being forgiven ourselves.
A strong motivator.
Yeah.
And the sources really stress how unforgiveness harms us.
How so?
It traps us in resentment, bitterness. It chains us to the past. Forgiveness, on the other hand, sets us free. It brings inner peace.
And Jesus said to forgive how many times?
77 times, Matthew 18. Basically endlessly. It's not about keeping score.
The story of Joseph forgiving his brothers is another example.
Genesis 50. After everything they did to him, it shows how forgiveness can transform situations, bring reconciliation.
Jesus also taught about reconciling before worship.
Matthew 5. Shows how important peace in relationships is.
And the Lord's Prayer includes it directly.
Forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. It's central.
Colossians 3 urges us to forgive as we've been forgiven.
Right. Extending that same grace strengthens relationships. And it often requires humility, letting go of pride, not waiting for the other person to apologize first.
It's an inner release.
Exactly. And importantly, forgiving isn't forgetting or saying the hurt didn't matter.
What is it then?
It's releasing yourself from the burden of that hurt, as Ephesians 4 puts it, letting go of the bitterness and anger.
So forgiveness is a path to strength and healing.
A powerful one, following Jesus' example. It leads to spiritual and emotional health.
Okay, one final key left, number 6.
The 6th key is accepting God's will.
Acceptance. Okay. How does that build strength?
The sources position this as perhaps the ultimate source of spiritual strength and resilience. Again, look at Jesus.
Back to Gethsemane.
Yes. Luke 22.42, "Yet not my will, but yours be done." That prayer captures the tension between our human desires and aligning with a higher purpose.
Trusting the bigger plan.
Even when we don't understand it, or even when it's painful, true resilience lies in trusting that plan.
The story of Abraham and Isaac comes up here too.
Genesis 22. A difficult story, but it shows profound obedience and trust in God's plan, even when it seemed incomprehensible. And God provided in the end.
Proverbs 16.9 says something relevant.
In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. A reminder that while we plan, the ultimate direction might be guided. Acceptance involves trusting that guidance.
And acceptance isn't just passive resignation.
No, the sources say it requires active faith, like Peter walking on water in Matthew 14.
As long as he kept his eyes on Jesus.
He was fine. When he looked at the storm, the circumstances, he faltered. It's about keeping focus.
Psalm 27 encourages waiting on the Lord.
Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart. Waiting can be part of acceptance, a time for growth, and trusting that things are unfolding.
And Job is mentioned accepting his losses.
Job 1.21. Profound acceptance of God's sovereignty even in suffering. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away.
The Lord's Prayer again. Your will be done.
Matthew 6.10. Seeking God's will aligns us with his kingdom, his purpose. Romans 8.28 reinforces that idea for things working together for good.
So acceptance is an ongoing act of faith.
Yes, and it ultimately brings peace, joy, restoration, trusting that larger wisdom.
Wow. Okay, so that's the 6 keys. Let's quickly recap.
Okay, 1. Unwavering trust in God.
2. Constant prayer.
3. Serving others.
4. Faith in difficult times.
5. Wholehearted forgiveness.
And 6. Accepting God's will.
And these aren't just, nice ideas. The sources really show them as practical ways to build that deep, lasting inner fortitude.
Definitely food for thought. As you're listening, maybe consider which of these principles really hits home for you right now.
Yeah, where do you feel you need more strength or resilience in your life?
Whoa.
Which key speaks to that?
And maybe here's a final thought to chew on. What could actually change if you intentionally tried to practice just one of these principles more consistently this week?
Like, what might it look like to actively work on trust or forgiveness, or maybe surrendering your own will in just one specific area?
It's definitely a journey, isn't it? Something worth exploring further.